Hey everybody, I'm gonna try my hand at a little live chess. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't want to play a game of Horde. No, just plain old standard 15-10. If I don't get something in a few minutes, I'll switch over to chess.com and play a 5-5 blitz. Oh, here we go. Hey, it's Kakarot. It's also known as Goku, Dragon Ball Z. He hasn't really spelt it right, but that's okay. So the Sicilian defense. I'm gonna try for a Smith-Morra Gambit. Maybe he did spell it right. I don't know. Kakarot. Sorry, I'm not too chatty. Though I will comment that this is a pretty atypical response for black. Black is not following down standard traditional lines for the Sicilian defense. But I am still applying basic, well, maybe slightly intermediate to advanced theory against the Sicilian defense, particularly a Smith-Morra Gambit style approach. Alright, well... Oh, you know what? I probably should have played c3. Yeah, I can play it still. Alright, now I'll play c3. So now I can bring my queen to b3, strengthening that diagonal. However, he did play e6, which is a standard foil to Smith-Morra Gambit, Danish Gambit, Evans Gambit, you know, any theory that employs a strong diagonal using the light squared bishop. I have a comfortable lead on him in regards to time, about 2 minutes. Now I can still play queen to b3, and then I can push my pawn to d5, with the anticipation of opening up that diagonal a little bit more. I think that's what we'll do here. I have to upload a whole bunch of videos to my blog. I've been slacking, if you will. In all fairness, there's a whole bunch there already for people to enjoy, but I've got at least 2 weeks worth of videos I think I have to upload. Oh well. I'm a busy person. I can play bishop to b2, strengthen that diagonal. That's the theory behind things like the Smith-Morra Gambit, the Danish Gambit, the Evans Gambit. They all sacrifice a pawn to get a strong diagonal with both their bishops, eyeing down the king's side of black in the anticipation that they may castle king's side. Alright, so here I'll now open it up. If he captures, e takes d. I'll capture back, bishop takes d5. It's interesting. It's pretty much a free move for me now, as it obliges black's queen to move. Sort of free development when you do that and force your opponent with tempo, sort of like a Zugzwang, if you will, with a major piece like the queen in this case, and the queen retreats. So now we continue an attack. Take the pawn at e6. If he captures back, f takes e, bishop takes e6, black's bishop takes e6, queen takes e6 check. Nice little development there. I would like something like bishop to e7 for an interposition, because then my bishop can easily take g7 and attack his rook at h8. I certainly have him on the retreat and recover mode, if you will. Regroup. That's definitely a tempo advantage. Now the only vulnerability I have is my pawn at f2. Oh, interesting. He decided to push a pawn. Alright, he'd be wise to take with his knight, because that is my next target. Even if he does take with the knight, I have a nice little check with bishop to f... Oh, he does not. Alright, good. So I take the knight. That puts me securely up 3 points in material, as you can see underneath my handle. I've still yet to castle. King side is probably the best. My queen side is pretty much open as far as pawn structure, though my queen side rook is free to move to whatever rank it wants, for the most part. Excuse me, not rank, to whatever file it wants. Oh, interesting. He decides to move his king. I'm going to castle, even though I probably could have made a move like knight to c4, pressuring his queen. But I think castling right now is a good idea in preparation for the middle game, if you will, heading into the end game. I should have a distinct advantage now. The only problem is I can't play pawn to f4 to strengthen my e-file pawn with the anticipation of playing e5. I'd have to move my king to h1 first to remove the pin that his queen has on the f2 pawn. I have an overwhelming time advantage. If you remember, we started with 15 minutes, and I'm yet to actually go below that. I've moved so fast that the incremental clock, 10 seconds per move, has proved to be beneficial for me. I'm now going to play my knight to c5. When he moves his queen, I have two options. Knight to a5 is good, knight to e3. I'd love to advance it further, but his pawn structure prevents moves like knight to e5 unless I want to make some sort of wacky sacrifice. I'm going to come back to e3. Now my pawn at e4 is hanging, but that's okay. If he takes it with his queen, I'm going to bring my rook at f1 to e1, and then I can have a discovered attack if I'd like. If he takes that pawn, I could also bring my bishop back to d5. That would also be pretty effective. I might actually do that, or I could even bring the knight to d5. Excuse me, I have a few options here. One advantage of knight to d5 is that I could move my knight to b6. I could fork his rook at a8 and his bishop at d7. Of course, he'd most likely be obliged to move the rook, and I'd win the bishop. It would be an exchange, and hopefully he would have to take with his king if I do it right, preventing his ability to castle in this game. Interesting. I have some time, so I'm going to think about this. His queen move is slightly under tempo, which affords me the ability to make a slightly under tempo move in response. Something like rook at a1 to c1 would be a good idea. Knight to d5 still seems good. I think I'm going to cover the file here. I'm going to go rook to c1 to cover the c file. It is open. Alright, I'm going to fall back and bring my bishop to c4, pressuring his queen with the anticipation of playing knight to d5 next. I feel I have a nice control of this situation positionally. I have almost twice the amount of time my opponent does. That may become a factor. If I can put him under time pressure in the endgame, I should have an advantage. Interesting. If I can keep his queen on pre, he'll waste time thinking about better squares to move it to. And he may take it off lines that he was intending to use for an attack. This is a very exposed defense, pawn structure on the king's side after castling, but I think it may be effective. Now moves like queen to h4 or queen to h3 seem like a good idea if he wants to keep his queen on my king's side pressuring it. Of course, we have to worry about mates at g2 with the queen. Okay, there he goes to h3. Alright. And now bishop takes e4 is a problem, because it threatens mate with queen to g2. But I can easily defend with rook to f2, for example. Now a discovered attack by moving my knight at e3 will prove to be fairly successful, I hope. Of course, if I move my knight, I lose the defense of my pawn at g4, allowing him to fork it, to capture it with a check. So I may want to leave my knight for the time being. I can prepare for that discovered attack by moving my bishop to e6 to defend the pawn at g4. Now if he plays f5, that could be problematic. Oh, that's what he does. Okay. Alright, we're now going to play g5. I'll certainly post this whether I win or lose. It's been pretty educational, I would hope. Interesting. Try to pressure his queen again. Now, if he brings his queen to h3, I like a move like knight takes f5. If he gives check by bringing his queen to g4, I can interpose with the knight to g3. Fortunately, the d1 square is defended both by my knight and queen. He may play something like pawn to g6 to interpose the attack of my light squared bishop on his queen. No, he does not. I'm going to continue pressure on his queen. Now bishop takes the knight to g2 is fine with me. That bishop is a bit of an annoyance, to be honest, and I would not mind my king on that square. Fortunately, my pawn at f4 is defended by my rook at f2, and my knight currently at g2. Interesting. He decides to work for a pin. I'm going to bring my rook over and deflect that. His queen seems to be effectively trapped now. I do believe I've won black's queen. He resigns. Let's share this game and I'll play another. Alright, let's try another one here. Okay, I'm black this time. I'll play the Sicilian if he decides to play e4. Here we go. c5, c5, the Sicilian defense. I used to shy away from it and avoid it when I first started playing. It seemed to be too daunting. But I'm comfortable with it now, and I like to employ its hyper-modern chess theory approach. He's playing basic Sicilian. Knight takes d4 would be the next move, and I'd follow with knight to f6. He'd respond with knight to c3. I would play pawn to... He brings his queen out. Well, I can immediately attack that queen. This is sort of gaining a free development of my knight on the queen side. I'm going to play bishop to d6 because I could use that with the discovered attack. Interesting. We'll play queen to c7 to defend the pawn at b7. I could be bold and castle queenside. I still would like to play pawn to g6, bishop to g7, knight to e7 preferably, or f6 and castle kingside. Okay. Now I can play knight to b4, pressuring his queen, and if you notice, my queen is on the c-file, which my knight then could capture c2 and fork his king and his rook, which I'm going to do right here. Win the rook. Now we should consider that knight lost. But since I've already taken away white's ability to castle, bringing the knight back... Oh, he missed something. I win his queen. He may resign now. I applaud him if he does not. I would love for him to try something like knight to b5, attacking my queen, because then I could capture his bishop at c1. Just got a little drink of water there. I forgot to post that last game. I'll do that after this. Alright, now I have a nice comfortable platform. I could bring my rook at a8 to c8 to support my queen on the c-file. I could bring it to... now, I could bring it to b8. It might be better, because then I could push my pawn to b5. It would be supported by my light squared bishop at d7 and the rook on the b-file. Oh, nope, I wanted to go to b8. Alright, we'll try this anyway. I'm going to have to play pawn to a6 first. This might actually prove to be beneficial anyway. Preemptive, if you will. Gets his king out of the way. Slightly under tempo move allows me to play a6. Way ahead on time. 5.5 minutes. Interesting. I can take my time here. This is a slight mistake on my part. Let's see if we can work around this. I can afford losing a rook. Let's see if I can do something with this. I'm not playing this game as well as I ought to. Oops. That was a mistake. I did not mean to do that. Interesting. I apologize for my blunder there. Let's hope I still win this game. Still up 6 points. I'm going to try something a little radical. Two out of 3 isn't bad anyway. Sorry, I'm not playing this game as well as I ought to. Oh, that might have been a blunder. He could play rook to a8. Interesting. Not good for me. Sorry guys. I know I should have won that one.